that Sophie joined Project B, and she gives a little insight on that. Well, while giving insight on it, she seems to confirm, whether she means to or not, that Caitlin Clark will not be playing in this league because Sophie tried to get her to play in this league.
The moment Sophie Cunningham opened her mouth during that post-practice media scrum, the entire WNBA universe felt the ground shift beneath them. Reporters leaned forward, cameras zoomed in, and social feeds froze mid-scroll as Sophie's voice cut through the tension with a sharpness nobody expected. With one sentence, one explosive, unfiltered confirmation, she detonated a bomb that sent fans into panic and the league into complete disbelief. Yeah, Caitlin rejected Project B. The gym didn't just fall silent, it imploded. Project B wasn't just another initiative. It was a league-backed, owner-funded, image-shaping movement designed to mold stars into the ideal WNBA brand. Rejecting it meant rejecting the system, rejecting the hierarchy, rejecting the carefully controlled narrative. The league had been trying to build around its biggest young superstar. Instantly, reporters fired questions, microphones collided, and Sophie's face shifted from confident to deadly serious. She didn't backtrack. She didn't soften the blow. People aren't going to like it, she said. But she made her decision. Fans online lost their minds, some praising Caitlin's independence, others accusing her of arrogance, others terrified of what this meant for her future. Within minutes, hashtags exploded. Insiders
AU in Nashville, then people can go overseas too, but this is a whole new one. And this one offers a lot of money, and that's why people are like moving towards this.
And this is also different than Unrivaled.
Completely different.
So how many like floating leagues are there? 3?
I would
2?
say that like a lot of the American players are doing, or I would say the majority is 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think there's going to be a lot of people switching over.
That's cool.
So like, here's my thing. So all these leagues are great, but at the end of the day, like if you don't have the W, you don't have the platform.
Right.
So you don't have the eyes, you don't have the recognition.
That's right, Caitlin Clark.
No, yeah.
You have the W.
Yeah. I tried to get her to like play in this one. She's like, no.
I saw Kelsey Mitchell's playing.
Yeah, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah.
Super excited to play with Kels. Or I don't know if I'll play with her, but we'll be in the same league.
Players panicked, and executives scrambled because Caitlin Clark doing something this bold meant only one thing. She was done playing by the league's rules. But Sophie's tone, her eyes, her hesitation before speaking, they hinted at something darker, something dangerous, something the public wasn't supposed to know. And the real reason Caitlin rejected Project B. That part hadn't leaked yet. And when it does, the league may never recover. Sophie Cunningham didn't casually drop Caitlin. Clark's secret into the world this moment had been building for months, silently tightening around both of them like a noose. To understand why Sophie looked so tense, why her voice flickered with something between frustration and fear, you have to rewind to the moment Project B was first introduced. It wasn't pitched as manipulation. It wasn't presented as control. It was sold as the future, a player development revolution, a branding accelerator that would transform selected WNBA stars into global icons. But only a few players were approached privately, off the record, away from team facilities. And Caitlin, she was their crown jewel. The league saw her as the foundation of a new era they wanted to engineer, manage, and monetize on their terms. But the deeper Caitlin looked into Project B, the more she saw the fine print. Restrictions on personal sponsorships, scripted media appearances, mandatory narrative shaping, and a quiet clause that stated the league could modify player public image strategy if needed. That last line shattered her trust instantly. She didn't leave Iowa to be rewritten. She came to the WNBA to be herself. Caitlin tried to keep her concerns quiet, confiding only in a tiny circle of people she trusted. Sophie was one of them, not because they were best friends, but because Sophie had been through an earlier version of the same system. She'd seen how
Caitlin Clark said, nah. Now, keep in mind, There's a long time before we get around to this league starting. And it should be noted, even Sophie says she turned.
Seen how leagues could mold players into characters, amplify drama for ratings, and punish anyone who didn't cooperate. When Caitlin showed her the Project B packet, Sophie's reaction wasn't show kit, was exhaustion. She told her they don't want stars. They want puppets. That sentence haunted Caitlin for weeks. The pressure didn't stop. Executives called, advisors pushed. Media insiders hinted that participating would help smooth over tension with veterans. Translation: fall in line and the league will protect you. Resist and you're on your own. Caitlin was drowning in expectations, spotlight, and a growing storm of haters. Signing on to Project B would have made her life easier. It would have taken heat off her. It would have softened rivalries and calmed executives who saw her influence as a threat. But Caitlin cared more about authenticity than comfort. She refused to let anyone script her journey. The emotional weight became suffocating. Every time she walked into a gym, she felt eyes watching, not just fans. Not just opponents, but people evaluating whether she could be managed. She hated being observed like a product. And Sophie noticed. She watched Caitlin crumble in private moments, watched her wipe tears after brutal press cycles, watched her shrink under manufactured narratives meant to shape her personality. Sophie had been in the league long enough to know the signs. Caitlin wasn't just being promoted. She was being groomed. And when grooming doesn't work, players get punished. Caitlin's rejection wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't rebellious. It was a simple message sent quietly through her agent. No, I won't participate. But that tiny word carried a nuclear impact. It defied executives. It challenged media partners. It disrupted marketing plans. It dismantled a multi-million-dollar initiative designed to control her. And worst of all, it
Pretty
Do
much.
you know the markets?
I do, but I don't know the exact city. So I know there's like 2 in Asia, 2 in Europe, I think 2 in the North and South Americas, and 1 elsewhere.
Dude, that fucking rocks.
I'm excited because I actually miss kind of traveling the world.
Yeah.
I was in France for 7 months. I went to Australia at the beginning of my career. Loved it. You just get cultured. It's fun. And I've missed it, but I also don't want to play year round. Like my body can't handle it. I have other things I want to do that I'm interested in. And so this just gives me the perfect opportunity to go play, get cultured, like see the world, but also like be able to come home and still experience like what I want to experience.
So you think it's a tasteful amount of basketball that like wouldn't burn you out, but it's offering you multiple things outside of like just my.
First of all, it exposed the league's fear of her. Influence.Sophie became the only person Caitlin spoke to about the aftermath. She told her everything. How certain executives suddenly grew cold. How reporters started digging for negative angles. How teammates whispered that Caitlin thought she was above the league. None of it was true. But rejecting Project B meant rejecting the hierarchy. And that meant enemies. Sophie told Caitlin she needed to prepare for retaliation. Caitlin just nodded, exhausted, because she already felt it coming. The next day, a strange shift happened. Reporters who once praised her became distant. League social accounts subtly minimized her highlights. And certain players who'd never spoken about her suddenly dropped thinly veiled criticism. It was coordinated. It was obvious. It was punishment disguised as narrative. But Sophie never expected to be the one who accidentally ignited the firestorm. When a reporter asked casually, "Did Caitlin join Project B like the others?" she froze. She tried deflecting. The reporter pushed. Cameras rolled. And so tired of secrets, tired of watching Caitlin get manipulated, finally cracked. Her answer was short but deadly. No, she rejected it. The room went silent. Reporters sensed blood. Sophie immediately knew she'd triggered something irreversible. But what she didn't know, what no one outside the league office knew, was that Caitlin's rejection wasn't the only problem. Because Project B wasn't just a branding initiative. It was connected to something much bigger. Something the league hoped would never be exposed. Something that could shatter careers and force resignations at the highest level. And now that Sophie had spoken, The people behind Project B were coming for Caitlin Clark. Everything changed the moment. Sophie Cunningham's words hit social media. Within minutes, Caitlin Clark's quiet rejection of Project B transformed into a national scandal, amplified by pundits, weaponized by critics, and twisted by people who'd been waiting months for an excuse to take her down. She watched the headlines multiply like wildfire. Caitlin Clark rejects league initiative. Rookie defies WNBA power structure. Insiders claim Clark refuses to cooperate. The narrative mutated in real time. What had been a private decision fueled by self-preservation suddenly became an act of defiance. And the league responded with the subtle, icy hostility of a system that had just lost control of its most valuable asset. Teammates eyed her differently. PR handlers offered empty smiles. Executives sent stiff emails. And Caitlin felt it all: the shift, the judgment. The resentment, as if the air itself had turned poisonous. She wasn't angry at Sophie. She was angry at the people who twisted the truth. Angry at the machine that punished individuality. Angry at the pressure that made rejection feel like betrayal. And while the world debated her motives, the league moved swiftly behind the scenes. A player relations memo leaked from an anonymous insider outlining concerns about Caitlin's resistance to collaborative branding efforts. Reporters picked it up instantly. They called her ungrateful, difficult, self-important. None of them knew the truth that Project B was never a collaboration. It was control disguised as unity. It was a contract designed to own her public identity. And these leaks weren't random, they were retaliation. The WNBA needed to make an example of her before other players dared to follow her lead and reject their grip. But the one thing they hadn't accounted for was the growing tension inside Caitlin herself. The slow burn that now felt like a wildfire in her chest. Sophie's involvement made everything more complicated. After the media firestorm, she tried calling, but Caitlin didn't pick up. Not because she was angry, but because she didn't know how to talk about the pressure crushing her. The betrayal wasn't from Sophie, but from the league watching silently as she was torn apart. She knew Sophie hadn't meant to expose her. She knew Sophie cared. But that didn't stop the consequences. That afternoon, Sophie faced reprimands from team officials and suspicious looks from other players who believed she deliberately fanned the flames. A veteran confronted her in the locker room. "Why'd you drag her into this mess?" Sophie snapped back. "I didn't drag her, Project B did, but the damage was already spreading like cracks in glass. Cracks in glass." Meanwhile, something darker began to unfold, something even Sophie couldn't have predicted. Mysterious burner accounts started posting leaked details about Project B, alleging that Caitlin refused because she thought she was too big for the WNBA. The accounts had no profile pictures, no history, and identical writing styles. They weren't fans. They weren't trolls. They were part of an organized smear campaign orchestrated by someone desperate to destroy Caitlin's public trust. The comments spread faster than wildfire, and soon real influencers were repeating them as facts. Caitlin watched in horror as her name became a battleground for narratives she hadn't created. It felt like drowning in mud when she tried to speak to her team's PR department about the false narratives. They brushed her off with polished indifference. "We suggest staying quiet. Stories burn out faster when players don't respond." But the stories weren't burning out, they were multiplying. She wasn't being protected. She was being sacrificed. She realized the league wasn't waiting for the storm to pass. They were using the storm to reshape her image into something weaker, something controllable. And inside that growing fear, a new conflict emerged, one that shattered the illusion of innocence around Project B entirely. Late one night, Caitlin received a message from a restricted number. "You made the right choice rejecting Project B, but they won't let you walk away." Attached was a single audio clip. When she pressed play, her breath froze. It was a recording from a closed-door executive meeting, voices of people she recognized discussing her name like a commodity. One voice said, "We need her compliance before season's end. If she resists, revise her media access." Another voice added, "Public pressure will break her eventually. It always does." A third voice, calmer, Calder said the line that sent chills down her spine. If she refuses long-term, we move ahead with phase 2. Caitlin replayed that sentence 5 times, her chest tightening each time. Phase 2. She didn't know what it meant, but the tone of the voice made it sound like a threat, a silencing, a punishment. And the worst part? The voice belonged to someone she trusted, someone she believed supported her rise. Someone who had been smiling at her in interviews just days earlier. She dropped the phone onto her bed and felt the full weight of betrayal slam into her. The next morning, things escalated again. A new story broke from a league insider, sources. Multiple veterans upset, with Caitlin Clark's refusal to participate in Unity Initiative. It was vague, manipulative, and unverified, exactly the kind of narrative used to turn players against one another. And it worked. When Caitlin walked into practice, she felt the tension like heat radiating off concrete. Teammates avoided eye contact. A veteran muttered loudly, "Must be nice to pick and choose when you're above everything." She wanted to scream that it wasn't true, that she had never acted superior, that Project B was not Unity 8, was control. But explaining the truth would expose the audio leak, and that would destroy Sophie too, so she stayed. Quiet, silent, alone. And that silence only made everything worse. But the breaking point came during a nationally televised game when Sophie approached her on the bench during a timeout. Cameras caught it. She leaned in, whispered something urgent, and Caitlin's expression cracked fear. Anger, confusion, all flashing across her face. The clip went viral instantly with millions of views. What did Sophie say? Why does Caitlin look terrified? Is there more to Project B? And there was, because Sophie hadn't whispered encouragement. She whispered the truth. She whispered the words Caitlin had been fearing since the audio leak. They activated phase 2. Caitlin's breath stopped. Phase 2 wasn't a rumor. Phase 2 wasn't empty intimidation. Phase 2 was real, and it had already begun. The words they activated phase 2 didn't just hit. Caitlin Clark, they ripped the air out of her lungs. She stared at Sophie Cunningham, mind racing, heartbeat crashing against her ribs as the noise of the arena faded into a distant, hollow hum. The crowd roared, coaches barked orders. Camera zoomed in, but Caitlin heard nothing except those 2 poisonous words echoing in her skull. Phase 2. The threat whispered behind closed doors. The contingency plan designed for her refusal. The mechanism the league swore didn't exist. And now it was happening. She felt it instantly, the shift in the atmosphere. The tightening grip of a system preparing to punish her for choosing integrity over control. When the timeout ended, Caitlin stepped onto the court, but her body felt foreign, disconnected. Each movement carried the weight of something closing in around her. The moment she touched the ball, a player from the opposing team shoved her harder than necessary. Another clipped her elbow. The refs swallowed their whistles as if instructed to let the game play. It wasn't basketball. It was a message, a demonstration, a warning. Phase 2 wasn't PR pressure. Phase 2 wasn't media smearing. Phase 2 was physical, meant to intimidate, unsettle, break her spirit from the inside out. And as she ran back on defense, the unease in her stomach twisted deeper because she realized the league wasn't just punishing her image. They were punishing her body after the game. The locker room atmosphere crackled with unnatural tension. Reporters weren't allowed in yet. But Caitlin could hear murmurs through the door, almost rehearsed, suspiciously synchronized. Her teammates avoided eye contact again, some with guilt, others with bitterness. An assistant coach approached her gently, speaking too softly. "Caitlin, you're being moved to a different interview room tonight." That alone was a red flag. She'd never been separated from the main media pool. But when the coach added, "It's a request from higher up," her chest tightened. She followed him down the hallway, heart pounding, past rooms she recognized and into a corridor she'd never seen before. Quiet dead end with a single door. Inside sat 3 people: a league PR officer, a representative from a media conglomerate Caitlin recognized immediately, and a woman she'd never seen before, sharp suit. Cold eyes, hands folded neatly on the table. The woman stood, offering a smile that felt manufactured in a laboratory. "Caitlin, thank you for coming. Please sit." Caitlin didn't move. "Why am I here?" The PR officer nervously adjusted his badge. There's some confusion around Sophie Cunningham's statement. We need to align messaging before it escalates. Align messaging. Code words. Pressure disguised as professionalism. The suited woman stepped closer. Caitlin, Project B was designed to ensure the league's long-term stability. Your rejection jeopardizes that stability. We need you to publicly clarify your position. Caitlin's voice was firm. "I'm not lying to fans. I'm not signing on to something I don't believe in." The woman's smile didn't move. "We don't need you to sign. We need you to comply." The room froze. Caitlin felt a chill crawl up her spine. Comply with what? The woman slid a tablet across the table. "A statement. You'll read it on camera tonight. It explains that your decision was misunderstood and that you support the values of Project B." Caitlin scanned a generic language twisted to suggest she regretted refusing the program. It wasn't an explanation. It was a confession. A surrender. "No," Caitlin said, pushing the tablet back. "I'm not doing this." The PR officer flinched. The media rep's jaw tightened, but the woman didn't blink. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a cold whisper only Caitlin could hear. "You will, because phase 2 is only the beginning." She pressed a button on her phone. A video projected onto the wall. Caitlin froze. It was footage of her struggling during a private practice drill weeks earlier. Bad day. A low moment, one she believed was off camera. She had snapped in frustration, tossing a ball, muttering to herself about pressure, about expectations, about feeling alone. Nothing malicious, nothing scandalous, but edited carefully, deceptively. It made her look unstable, difficult, out of control. And the woman watching Caitlin's reaction smiled faintly. "Imagine this clip, Caitlin, played on every network tomorrow morning. Imagine the headlines. Is Caitlin cracking under pressure? Sources rift between Clark and team growing. Imagine what sponsors would think. Imagine what fans would think." Caitlin felt her stomach twist violently. This wasn't persuasion. This was blackmail. Before she could respond, the woman continued. "Sign the statement and this clip never sees the light of day. Refuse and phase 3 begins." Caitlin's voice wavered between fury and dread. "What is phase 3? The woman's smile sharpened. "Influence reduction." Then she clarified, "Your minutes, your media, your endorsements. Everything that makes you Caitlin Clark decreased until you fall back in line." Caitlin stepped back, breath shaking. "You can't do that." The woman shrugged. "We already are." And that's when the real twist hit. A voice from the hallway boomed. "She's not signing a damn thing." Everyone turned. Damn thing. Everyone turned. Sophie Cunningham burst into the room, face flushed with anger, eyes blazing with defiance. Behind her stood 2 teammates and a veteran player from another team. All of them furious, all of them trembling with adrenaline. Sophie pointed directly at the woman in the suit. "You're not torturing her into a scripted apology. Not happening." The media rep shouted, "You can't be in here, this is confidential." Sophie shoved past him. "Shut up. I know what phase 2 is. I know what you're doing." The suited woman's calm expression faltered for the first time. Sophie continued, voice cracking with emotion. "She didn't reject unity. She rejected control. And if you try to crush her, you're going through every player who still believes in honesty in this league." But the suited woman wasn't rattled. She simply pressed another button on her phone, and that's when the screens lit up again with something far worse. Not footage of Caitlin. Not footage of Sophie. Footage of a document. Confidential document. One with Caitlin's name stamped. At the top dot, and as the room fell into horrified silence, Sophie whispered, "Oh my God, they forged something." Caitlin stepped closer, eyes widening. Because the document wasn't about Project B, it was about her, and the title read Proposal. Caitlin Clark Image Correction Protocol, Phase 3, Implementation underneath. A signature appeared hers. Except she had never seen this paper in her life. It was fake. A forged consent form. A manufactured agreement giving the league permission to manipulate her public image however they wished. Sophie screamed, "This is illegal." The suited woman calmly replied, "No, this is Phase 3. And Caitlin Clark realized she wasn't fighting a program anymore. She was fighting an entire system built to control her. The forged document detonated through the sports world like a bomb no one could escape. By the time Caitlin Clark stepped out of that private interrogation room, the internet had already erupted into a toxic hurricane of accusations, conspiracy theories, and emotional warfare. Reporters swarmed the tunnels shouting questions about image correction protocols, Phase 3 manipulation, and league-engineered control strategies. But Caitlin couldn't stop. She moved like someone trapped between two realities: the public spectacle and the private betrayal, her chest compressing with every step. Her hands shaking with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Fans online were screaming in real time, desperately trying to decipher the truth from the chaos. Half the world defended her with an almost violent loyalty. She would never agree to that. This document is fake. They're trying to break her. But the other half spun narratives faster than she could breathe. Why would she sign something like that? Is she trying to control her own media? Is Caitlin manipulating the league? The duality of hero and villain crushed her from both sides. Sophie Cunningham tried to reach her. But Caitlin kept walking, needing air, needing space. Needing a moment where she wasn't someone else's storyline. But space didn't exist anymore, not when the entire WNBA, every fan base, every media outlet, and every executive had suddenly turned her into the most volatile subject in sports. The league scrambled with emergency statements trying to contain the fallout. Issuing stiff corporate words meant to reassure the public, but instead pouring gasoline on the fire. Their denial of the forged document felt hollow, calculated, and insincere. Fans weren't stupid. They saw the fear in the league's tone. They smelled the panic. They sensed the cover-up. And their outrage only grew stronger. Hashtags exploded across platforms. Hashtag let Caitlin speak. Hashtag we believe her. Hashtag stop the control. Hashtag free the WNBA. Each gathering millions of posts as people demanded transparency the league wasn't prepared to provide. Inside the locker room, Caitlin's teammates were split, and the emotional divide was tearing the room apart. Some girls hugged her and whispered that they believed her. Others avoided looking at her, scared of being pulled into the storm. A few questioned her in hushed voices, not out of malice, but fear of being tied to a scandal so massive it threatened sponsorships, playing time, and entire careers. A rookie approached her timidly, eyes full of conflict. "Caitlin," she whispered, "if they forged your signature, what else could they do?" Caitlin had no answer. Her silence said everything. The truth was darker than anyone wanted to admit. If the league could manufacture a document this bold, this invasive, then players weren't protected by contracts anymore. They were prisoners of them. The emotional fallout didn't stop with players. Caitlin's own family was dragged into the chaos. Her parents received nonstop calls from reporters. Old neighbors were interviewed. Childhood coaches were tracked down. Out-of-context quotes from people she barely knew resurfaced online within hours. The media pulled apart every statement she'd ever made. Every facial expression she'd ever shown, every moment of frustration she'd ever had on court. And the worst part? Every twist of the knife was designed to break her spirit from the inside out, to make her feel small, fragile, helpless, compliant. That's what Project B had always been about. That's what Phase 2 was meant to achieve. And now Phase 3 was attempting to finish the job. Sophie wasn't handling it any better. She confronted team officials yelling about corruption and forged signatures, demanding accountability. But the league responded with cold, Empty threats, warnings about professional repercussions, and media protocol violations. They wanted Sophie to retreat. They wanted her scared. They wanted her quiet. But she refused. She stood in front of reporters and said, "If you think Caitlin would sign something like that, you don't know her. And if you think this league is innocent, you don't know them." The clip went viral, sparking national debate about league integrity. Some praised her courage. Others warned she'd just destroyed her career. But Sophie didn't care anymore. Someone had to protect Caitlin. Someone had to expose the rot, the emotional collapse inside. Caitlin reached a breaking point when she finally found herself alone in the practice facility bathroom. Gripping the sink so hard her fingers turned white. Tears fell not from weakness, but from betrayal so deep it felt like her ribs were cracking. She whispered to her reflection, "I didn't ask for this. I didn't want any of this. I just want to play." But wanting to play wasn't enough anymore. The league had forced her into a war she never chose. A war over narrative, control, power, and influence. A war she wasn't prepared for, but no longer had the option to walk away from. Then came the final blow. Her agent burst into the bathroom, face pale, hands trembling, phone in hand. "Caitlin," he gasped. Something else just leaked. She wiped her eyes, bracing herself for another lie, another fake document, another twisted narrative. But when he showed her the headline, she felt her knees weaken. League official claims Caitlin Clark may face suspension during investigation. Her voice cracked. Suspension? For what? What did I do? Her agent swallowed. "They're saying you violated conduct protocols by undermining league initiatives and refusing corrective programs." Caitlin felt the world collapse around her. Suspension wasn't just punishment. Suspension was branding her as a problema threat. Suspension would kill sponsorships, fan perception, future contracts. Suspension would signal to other players that resisting Project B meant sacrificing your career. But before she could even respond, before the panic could fully consume her, another notification hit both their phones at the same time. A video. Anonymous source. 30 seconds long. Caption: "The real reason Caitlin rejected Project B. Leaked at last." Caitlin opened it. With trembling hands, her eyes widened. Her breath caught. Her entire world changed. And when the video ended, one horrifying truth became clear. Project B wasn't designed to control her. It was designed to expose her, because the person in the video, the person Project B was secretly built around, the person she had unintentionally betrayed, was someone she never imagined. Someone the world would never forgive her for rejecting. And when the public found out, the moment the mysterious video stopped playing, Caitlin Clark felt the world tilt beneath her feet. The bathroom lights flickered overhead, the cold air stung her skin, but none of it registered. All she could see burned into her mind like an after-image was the face in the video. The person at the center of Project B, the person the entire initiative had been secretly built around. The person the league was determined to elevate, protect, and weaponize. It wasn't a veteran. It wasn't a commissioner. It wasn't a sponsor. It was another player. A player the league wanted to crown as the next unstoppable megastar, someone who matched Caitlin's fame. Someone who could challenge her influence. Someone whose narrative they could completely control. And that player was Sophie Cunningham. It didn't make sense at first. Caitlin staggered back, gripping the wall as she replayed the clip in her mind. Sophie, her confidant, her reluctant ally, the only person who stood up for her future in confidential Project B strategy sessions, nodding as executives outlined media directives, branding plans, and image synchronization models. Sophie speaking about unifying narratives. Sophie speaking about unifying narratives. Sophie declaring if Caitlin doesn't join, it compromises the entire program. Her voice calm, determined, complicit. The betrayal struck like a blade between her ribs, not because Sophie was part of Project B, but because she had never told Caitlin, not once, not in all their late-night conversations, not when she warned her about retaliation. Sophie had been playing both sides. And now the world would see her as the centerpiece of a program Caitlyn rejected, turning Caitlyn into the villain of Sophie's supposed rise. Caitlyn's chest tightened as another horrifying realization sank in. Phase 2 wasn't designed to punish her for rejecting Project B. It was designed to protect Sophie's image at all costs. If Caitlyn refused to play along, the league risked their narrative collapsing, and Sophie's carefully constructed branding collapsing with it. They needed Caitlyn compliant. They needed her cooperative. They needed her obedient. And when she refused, they turned to blackmail, to manipulation, to forged documents. Because they weren't just defending Project B, they were defending Sophie Cunningham. Her agent touched her shoulder gently, but she flinched. "Caitlyn, say something." She shook her head, barely managing the words. She knew. This whole time. She knew. Her voice cracked with betrayal, and she let me trust her. Tears welled in her eyes. Not from weakness, but from the unbearable weight of realizing she had been fighting a war without knowing the real battlefield. She whispered again, bitterly. She let me walk, right into Phase 2 alone. The emotional impact was devastating her. Only Ally had been part of the machine built to control her. But the real twist came moments later when Caitlyn's agent received another alert. A second leaked video. This one far more dangerous. Far more explosive, far more destructive. He hesitated before showing it to her. "Caitlyn, this one changes everything." Her heart hammered as she pressed play. The video opened with dim lighting, muffled voices, and a long conference table. Executives, PR officials, media strategists, and at the head Sophie Cunningham. Except this time, she wasn't nodding silently. She wasn't participating reluctantly. She was leading the meeting. She was the one saying Project B fails without Caitlyn Clark's cooperation. If she won't join willingly, we force alignment. Use pressure. Use narrative tools. Use whatever is necessary to protect league positioning. Another clip. If she rejects me publicly, it fractures everything we've built. Our branding depends on unity. She needs to understand that. Another, she respects me. She listened to me. And if she doesn't, we escalate. Caitlyn felt a cold shiver crawl up her spine. Sophie hadn't stumbled into Project B, she was the face of it. The beneficiary. The chosen one. The player the league wanted to elevate alongside Caitlyn. Creating a controlled two-star narrative they could shape, manipulate, and exploit. And Caitlyn's refusal didn't just derail Project B, it threatened Sophie's entire future trajectory. Sophie had everything to lose by Caitlyn refusing, everything to gain by Caitlyn obeying, and everything to win by the public believing Caitlyn was unstable, ungrateful, or rebellious. But the final seconds of the video contained the most devastating twist yet. A voice, off-screen, asked Sophie, "What if Caitlyn refuses to cooperate all the way through Phase 3? Sophie didn't hesitate. We moved to Phase 4. The room fell silent in the clip. What's Phase 4? Someone whispered. Sophie replied with chilling calm. Character collapse. Public distancing. Controlled rivalry. We let the fans choose sides. And we make sure Caitlyn loses." Caitlyn stopped breathing. Phase 4 was never meant to be subtle. It was war. Her agent grabbed her arm. "Caitlyn, we need to go public. Now this is career ending for Sophie and for the entire league if we time this right." But Caitlyn couldn't hear him, couldn't think, couldn't function because at that exact moment, her phone buzzed. A new message. From Sophie, one sentence. "We need to talk before anyone else sees that video. Then please don't believe what they leaked. Meet me alone." A location pinned itself on the map, the same empty gym where Phase 2 had been activated. Caitlyn looked at her agent. Eyes hollow. "It's a trap," he whispered. "I know," she replied, "but I have to go. 'Cause if Sophie really betrayed her," Caitlyn needed to hear it from her own mouth. "And if Sophie didn't betray her, then someone else was framing them both. Either wait and night, someone's career would end, and someone's truth would finally rise." The night Caitlyn Clark stepped toward that dimly lit gym, every breath felt like a countdown. Every shadow like a warning, every heartbeat like an alarm. She wasn't walking toward Sophie Cunningham anymore. She was walking toward the truth that had been hunting her for weeks. The system that had disguised control as unity. The league that had chosen manipulation over integrity. And as the storm outside cracked open the sky, Caitlin finally understood the weight of what had been done to her. They didn't just attack her career. They tried to rewrite her identity, fracture her confidence, and weaponize the woman she trusted most. But in the ruins of betrayal, fear, and exposure, something fierce awakened inside her. A fire she never asked for, but one she was ready to unleash. Because this wasn't just her fight anymore. It wasn't just her reputation on the line. It was every player who'd ever been silenced, every rookie forced into compliance, every veteran punished for speaking truth, every woman whose brilliance threatened the wrong people. The WNBA didn't need manufactured unity, it needed justice. It needed honesty. It needed players who refused to bow to systems built on intimidation. And Caitlin was done being controlled. She was done being quiet. She was done letting powerful people hide behind private meetings and forged documents. She wasn't going to survive the scandal. She was going to expose it, but she can't do it alone. This is where you step in. The future of women's basketball depends on the voices loud enough to break the machine. Share the truth. Demand transparency. Support the players risking everything. Reject the narratives designed to divide them. Amplify the voices they tried to silence. Make sure the world knows what Project B really wasn't who it was meant to destroy, because Caitlin Clark is walking into the fire now. And the only question left is, will you walk with her? Will you walk with her?